This is from March of 2024. Here's the headline in the New York Times. You're not going to believe this. For Joe Biden, what seems like age might instead be style. It might be style. And they compared him to to certain artists at the end of their careers who enter a new and distinctive phase of creativity. No. I'm quoting here. No. Sometimes they produce a succession of masterpieces that both fulfill and transcend the promise of an earlier work. Richard Wagner's final run of operas, the three major novels Henry James published at the start of the 20th century, the movies Martin Scorsese is making now. That's the New York Times in March about this president.
Amazing. Like he's like, yeah, it's a new phase I'm going through. I just headed down to the Villages and checked out the assisted living facility and feel like that style is sort of befitting of where I'm at in terms of my leadership.
It's just like Neil Young writing Harvest Moon. Just a different phase.
He's going to wear skinny ties now and forget everything. That's his new style in his 80s.
How quickly they jump from excuse to excuse. They're like, it's a stutter. No, it's actually his style.
It's a style.
Yeah, it's intended to be like that. It's artistic.
Yeah. So this is the same magazine that's now, you guys saw the piece today where the New York Times today is freaking out that their pressure campaign on him is not working and doubled down with the headline. This is the editorial board. The Democratic Party must speak the plain truth to the president. I'm going to read you some of this by the editorial board. For voters who held out hope that President Biden's failure to communicate during last month's debate was an aberration, the intervening days have offered little comfort. Instead of campaigning vigorously to disprove doubts and demonstrate that he can beat Mr. Trump, Mr. Biden has maintained a scripted and controlled schedule of public appearances. He has largely avoided taking questions from voters or journalists, the kinds of interactions that reveal his limitations and caused him so much trouble on the debate stage. And when he cast aside his teleprompter, most notably during a 22-minute interview with Stephanopoulos on Friday, he has continued to appear as a man in decline. The president is now trying to defy reality. Mr. Biden has disregarded the concerns of the voters, his fellow citizens, and put the country at significant risk. Since his feeble debate performance, multiple polls have shown that both Mr. Biden's approval rating and his chance of beating Trump have markedly dropped from their already shaky levels. He went with the polls are wrong. The latest Time CNN poll showed 74% of the voters think he's too old. And they go on to say as follows: Democratic leaders should not rely solely on the judgment of the few voters who turned out in this year's coronation primaries. So F the voters.
Endorsement of democracy.
We know better. Mr. Biden has to pay attention to the will of the broader electorate that will determine the outcome in November. And then we read this in the intro, but since you guys weren't here, I'll tell you what they say next. From the grassroots to the high levels of the party, Democrats who want to defeat Trump in November should speak plainly to Mr. Biden. They need to tell him that his defiance threatens to hand victory to Mr. Trump. They need to tell him he is embarrassing himself and endangering his legacy. He needs to hear plain and clear that he is no longer an effective spokesman for his own priorities, going on to call specifically on Schumer, Jeffries, and Pelosi, saying the time has arrived to speak forcefully. The whisper campaign is inadequate.
There it is. There it is. Well, look, you come to the conclusion that they're not at all bothered by whether this guy can do the job or not, right? We've all seen this in Technicolor over the last 3.5 years. Nobody's been the slightest bit concerned about Joe Biden's ability to do the job, despite the fact that it's quite obvious that he can't. Their problem, and the reason they're up in arms at this point, is because he's losing.
Yep.
They're very offended by the fact that they could lose to Donald Trump. They make no mistake. They would weekend at Bernie's this guy all the way through if they thought they were going to beat Donald Trump.
I mean, that was plan A.
That was plan A. But I mean, quite honestly, they would have Benito Mussolini on the ticket if they thought that he could beat Donald Trump. They don't care about whether Joe Biden has any amount of fitness for this job. The only thing that they care about is winning it. Mm-hmm. And that has become imperiled since the debate. And so now we're all up in arms. They could have done this, by the way, at the same time where they were writing the article last March that you read from, extolling the virtues of this new stage of Joe Biden, because it was quite obvious then what was happening now.
Exactly. And, I think what this is, a really great example is, you're seeing this kind of outrage from the media saying that like, oh, we were lied to. And that article to me is just like impotent rage of realizing that nothing they say or do, no matter what fit they throw, will matter. The Democrats won't listen to them. Biden's not going to budge because the New York Times says so. And the thing is they did this to themselves. When they became stenographers instead of reporters, they gave away whatever power they had. You know, if you're not holding power to account, power won't respect you. And that realization is becoming really stark to them. They're like, why won't Joe Biden listen to us? Oh, right. It's because he knew he could just get us to do whatever he wanted for years.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point, Smug, and I'm glad you brought it up because one of the things we talk about on the show all the time is that the mainstream media will not write a negative story about a Democrat unless it's in service of a separate Democrat. Yep. If at this point they are thinking that there's no chance that Joe Biden is off the ticket, that they're stuck with him, the other Democrat they're writing in service of are these liberal ideas that they hew so closely towards, so that when Joe Biden loses to Donald Trump in November, it's not the unpopular ideas of the open borders and the high inflation and the horrible things that Joe Biden has been doing to this country. It's just that he was too old to win. So they are covering their ass.
Interesting you should say that because, first of all, it is Jackie Walorski. Jackie Spires is fine. But Jackie Walorski was from Indiana and died. And they ran an in memoriam to her moments before he stood up there and said, where is she? You
just terrible.
You just acknowledged that she's dead. Anyway, God rest her.
You remember,
so,
hey, Megyn, do you remember the guy that had no legs that he told to stand up at a rally?
Yes.
That was also
Oh, God
a real
love
winner.
you. God love you. Stand up so people can see who you are. Oh, God love you. Let me tell you a story about a guy named Leo Grillo. Leo was on a road trip and came across a Doberman. This dog was severely underweight and clearly in trouble. Leo rescued the dog and named him Delta. Sadly, though, Delta was just one of many animals that needed help. And all this inspired Leo to start Delta Rescue. It's the largest no-kill, care-for-life animal sanctuary in the world. They've rescued thousands of dogs, cats, and even horses from the wilderness, and they provide their animals with shelter, love, safety, a real home. April marked 45 years since Leo rescued Delta. Delta Rescue relies solely on contributions to stay open. If you want caring for these animals to be part of your legacy, speak with your estate planner because there are tax benefits for you here too. You can grow your estate while letting your love for animals live well into the future. Check out the estate planning tab on their website to learn more and speak with your advisor. We call dogs man's best friend for a reason. You can help those who need it most. Visit deltarescue.org today to learn more. That's deltarescue.org. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.